I see you looking at the runtime of this video. Don't panic. Don't panic. It's okay. Okay, so I've like tried to condense my intro notes down, so we're gonna try and speed through this so that way it doesn't take up too much time, but this video's already too long, so I'm not sure if I should care. But anyway, what is this video? Why am I making it? I made a tutorial over a year ago. I tried to teach some like basic HTML CSS coding, making a website, all that fun stuff. This is a follow-up video where we will be focusing on making an actual like layout and making it like look like a website, I suppose you could say, instead of just like throwing random code onto the page. The layout we're talking about here is like, it's got a header, it's got a navigation on the side, it's got a footer at the bottom, and of course the area for your main content, that sort of stuff. You see it everywhere. So this is what we'll be making. There are a couple variations to this layout, which I don't touch on the specifics of how to make in this video, but you can probably use what you learned in this video to go ahead and make them if you want to. If not, I can always make another video. We'll get to it, that's fine. Now, I choose this image as a visual guide throughout this video, and this is the final layout that I end up making. Lots of pastels, lots of cute pinks and blues and all this sort of stuff. If you're not into that, that's fine. For a lot of the start of this video, we'll be working with just this like plain black and white layout. You can just see the shapes and where they lay out on the page, so you can go ahead and change the aesthetics to however you please, do not fear. But you will be seeing a lot of these pastels throughout this video because I've recently got really obsessed with this like image I found on Pinterest with some color palettes on it, which I don't know where it originally came from, so sorry I can't give credit, but the pin just links to some random website that has nothing to do with color palettes, so forgive me for all that being said. In addition to doing whatever aesthetic you like, you don't have to do a layout like this. You can do whatever you want, like do what you wish. You don't have to follow this tutorial. So this video focuses on coding a layout from scratch, so you can go ahead and show the world that you know how to make your own layout, and that's great, that's excellent. If you don't really care about that, you just want to get a website up and running, you just want a layout to be made so you can start putting stuff on your website. There are layout generators and pre-made layouts that are available on the internet. People have made for you to use. Some of them will require credit, I imagine, but some might not. I will try and link some of those in the description. I will leave it up to you to figure out the wishes of the creator, whether or not they need crediting or not. Do not steal layouts, and don't copy paste random people's code, but I will try to provide people who are like giving permission to have their stuff used. Just take note of whether or not they want credit. You will notice this tutorial is obviously, like I said, very long. I'm so sorry. I ramble and I start talking about other things. Oh, while we're here, let's learn this. So there's lots of little bits of those in there. I cannot bring myself to make a straightforward tutorial, so I will leave timestamps so you can hopefully navigate this tutorial a bit easier. But yeah, very long, very rambly, very sorry. You will need basic CSS HTML knowledge, but not much. If you've never done any HTML CSS before, you can do this tutorial, but I'd advise you maybe look into like a little bit, some very basic stuff before you get here, because when we get to the CSS, it goes from nothing on the page to stuff on the page very suddenly, and I don't want people to feel overwhelmed. You can follow along if you've never seen it before, but you might want to brush up on some stuff first, is what I'm saying. As with last video, I'm not an expert, I don't know what I'm doing, I do this for fun. If someone in the comments is smarter than I am, feel free to politely leave notes to help me and anyone else following this tutorial, and I will do my best to make corrections if I've made any mistakes, so feel free to let me know. Back to me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Back to the video. How do I close this? Okay, so getting into the tutorial now. As with last tutorial, I am using brackets to do my coding. Another program I can suggest would be Visual Studio Code, I think is what that's called. I mean, if you really want to, you can do this in like Notepad, that also works. And of course we have my browser window open. I am using Firefox. Not that that's important, it doesn't really matter what browser you use. but there you go. So I've already kind of got us started off here. We have a doc type HTML tag at the stop. Oh my god. We have a doc type HTML tag at the top. That's what I meant to say. HTML opening tag and the closing tag down here. We have our head tags, our body tags, and I have added in my title tag. If you were here last video, you know what's going on. Not important. You do not need this if you don't want. But yeah, the title tags puts the text up in this little tab thing here. So I've set this up here in my index.html file. Remember, it must be called index.html if this is your like main page. That is how browsers, I think it's how the browsers like find your homepage, I guess, is a way of putting it. I've also got I've got an images folder here, got my tile background here, and my Pusheen plush PNG just kind of set up. You don't really need images, but you know, if you, as you're making this, if you just have an idea in your head and you're like, I want to get an image for this, go ahead and get it. You can pause the video and go look for it, that's fine. Not really anything else that really needs to be set up, just as long as you have your index and you've got the base code there. That's a very good start, because the next thing that we are going to do is create an external CSS file. So in the last video, I talked about how to use CSS. So CSS is the code that we use to style our page. So we talked about inline styling, like in document styling, I guess that's called, by putting style tags up here in the head. In file styling, I don't know, we put style tags in the header. Oh my god, I'm gonna get through this. We put style tags in between our head tags, and that's where we can put some CSS specific to the page. But also in the last video, I mentioned external styling, which is where we use an external CSS file. But I don't think I did that, so that's what we're going to do today, because it's going to make things very easy, especially for a layout, because you'll typically want that across multiple pages, and so having the file external means you will not have to copy paste the same style information over and over and over again. So we do not need these. That is okay. What we are going to do is create a CSS file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File. We're going to hit, we're going to go to File, we're going to hit New. And we're going to save this. As with last video, you can either go File, Save. I prefer the keyboard shortcut, so I'm going to hit Control S on my keyboard. And this has brought up my File Explorer, I don't know what it would be called off Windows. I'm going to call this file style.css. Now, unlike your index.html, it does not need to be called anything specific, but it does need to end in the .css, obviously, so it recognizes it as a CSS file. I'm just going to save that in my main folder here. So we have index.html and style.css. And that's basically all the files we need. So before we start messing around with the style CSS, we need to make sure that our HTML file and our CSS file are linked, because right now the HTML file does not know that there is a CSS file that it is supposed to be referencing. So to let the HTML file know where the CSS file is, we're going to use a link tag. Now, I believe we used a link tag last video to add a like favicon thing up here in the tab, but this time we're going to use it for our CSS file. So you want to go link. It needs to know that this is a style sheet, so we're going to go rel equals, is that an equal sign? That's a plus sign. Equals quotations style sheet, no spaces, and then after that quotation we're going to go href or href equals quotations, and here is our style CSS folder, or depending on what you're using, you'll have to manually type that in, and then end the tag there. And This is an example of one of those tags that do not have a closing tag after it, so you do not need to worry about adding a / link after this. This is completely fine, completely valid. And now this basically means that the HTML document will now reference a CSS file for any styling that we put in here. So this basically functions the same as if we would put style tags and then put any information in those style tags, it would be the same. So this is basically one big style tag. We don't need to put any HTML in here. It's just pure CSS. It knows what it's doing. It will understand. But before we go ahead and do any of the styling, we actually don't have anything on our page. And before we put anything on a page, I'm going to save my work because right now I have not got this saved. So I'm going to hit Control S. Again, do that however you wish. Remember to save your work, people. Very important. Yes, what we are going to do is add some stuff onto our page because this is looking very blank. Obviously, if we look here, we've got, you know, the header, the nav, the main, the footer. But before we get to those, what I want to do is contain them all inside another container, which obviously we're not going to see, but it will be there in the code. So that way we can style it certain ways. What we're going to do in our body tags is first add a div tag. And you want to give it a name, so I'm going to go, it's class equals quotations. You can call it whatever you want. I think for simplicity I'm going to call mine box, but anything like container would also make sense. I think a lot of people usually call theirs container, but anyway, that's up to you. And then inside of our box or our container, then we're going to put all our semantic HTML in. We've got our body tags and then our div tags, which we've called box, our header, our nav, our main, and our footer. And that is basically all of the elements we'll be working with on the page as far as the layout. Obviously, depending on what you want to put inside of these items is going to change. Obviously, you want stuff on your web page, so that's going to be up to you. For now, just so we can see what we're working with, I am going to just put some text in here, but we will come back and change this later because this is a pretty boring website. Sorry if your website looks like this. And now that we can kind of see what we're working with, we are going to actually start using the CSS. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that so fun? So I'm going to go Control S and then move on to our style sheet. First thing that we want to do is we want to be able to visualize where these boxes kind of are, because obviously in my little graphic here, very good graphic, we've got some outlines so we can really see the shape they're taking and the space they're taking up. So just to make things easy to work with, we want to basically do that here as well. Oh, here's something interesting that I can talk about. So we can write out our styles individually to target each individual thing. So as you can see, I've put some borders on them so we can kind of see where they're spreading out to, you know, their size, what space they're taking up, all that. A lot easier to visualize with these borders. So we've targeted each one individually, but it gets very repetitive. We've got border black 2 pixel solid, border black 2 pixel, and it just keeps going. Now this is still perfectly fine, this still works, but let's say you want to condense this down. So I don't really know if this has any technical official terms. In my notes have called this condensed versus uncondensed versus semi-condensed HTML. Well, it's not HTML, it's CSS, but anyway, my notes are wrong, but that's fine. So this would be an example of what I'd consider uncondensed, like it keeps going over and over and over again. And there can be reasons why you might like to do this, but let's say you don't want to do this. Let's say you want condensed CSS. And the way we do that is if we just remove all these and we just stick to this first one, what you can do is you can just separate by commas and add in of your targets. So here, instead of putting them separately, we have them all in one go, and the border black 2 pixel solid applies to all of them in one go. And that's a lot less typing if you want to save some time. We will need these to be separated later on to make the tutorial work. But that is where semi-condensed CSS comes in. Again, not an official term. I don't know what that means. But we will get to that later. For now, this is fine. The uncondensed version is fine. Just go with what you want. That's completely up to you. But now that we can see HTML, boxes, shall we call them, we want to make this look more website-y. So I'd say the first step for that would be probably to shrink the width of our elements here, because they're like taking up the entire width of the page, and personally that's not what I want. So here in HTML, with this div that we've made that I've called box, I want to target that and target our box, or whatever you've called it. And we want to make it smaller. So I'm going to go, okay, so we could go width and then set the width. I'm going to go max width, and this is going to be relevant in future as far as like making it responsive so it works on phones or smaller screens. You probably won't see a difference between width and max width as far as this tutorial, but that's okay. This is just setting you up if you decide to go down that path later, and if I get around to making another tutorial, that will probably be the next thing, is mobile friendliness, mobile responsiveness, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go max width, and I'm going to set it to 1000 pixels. So that is adjusted the width of our main area. Not our main, not our literal main, but our, like, it has adjusted the width of our container, that's what I'm trying to say. But this is off center, and I personally prefer to have my container in the center of the screen. There we go, words are coming to me. And so for that, what we're going to do is, well, okay, here's the thing. Last video, I would have gone margin left auto, margin right auto. I think this is actually why I did last video, but there is actually an easy way of doing this. So just as we condensed some of this stuff here, we can condense some of these styles. So that's what we're going to try and do with this. Rather than writing margin left, margin right, margin top, margin bottom, you can just add 4 different measurements to the margin style. Okay, so to basically explain how the margin style works, I'm just going to add in some numbers that kind of really show off what each number does. Basically what's happened here is the margin style has taken 4 different measurements, and each different measurement applies to a side of our container here. Can I make this better? Let's see if I can make this better. Okay, this is a bit more extravagant. All right, so the top one is 100. The right is 200, bottom is 300, left is 700. So it goes around in a clockwise direction starting from the top as each measurement goes. I believe if you give it, let's take away one of these. And what's happened here is when it's given 3 measurements, it will apply the first measurement to the top, so in this case 100 pixels, the second measurement to the left and right, so in this case 200 pixels, and the last measurement will be applied to the bottom, which in this case is 300 pixels. So this would be useful if your 2 sides, your left and right margins need to be the same, but your top and bottom margins need to be different. If we take away another measurement and we're left with 2 measurements, what this does is look wrong. That's what that does. Okay, so I've just changed this second one to 400 pixels just so you can really see it, because I was struggling there for a second. In this case, what it's done is it's taken the first measurement and applied it to the top and bottom. So in this case, 100 pixels, and the second measurement and last measurement in this case is 400 pixels, which is applied to the left and right margins. So that was a lot of information, a lot of explanation. Basically, you can condense down margin properties a lot depending on exactly how detailed you want to get. So in this case, when we want to target margin left and margin right to make them auto, what we want to do is this 400 pixels, which is currently targeting the left and right, we can just change to auto. And that has automatically centered our container here. We've got 100 pixels for the top and bottom. I don't really want 100 pixels. Let's just shorten that to 50. Again, set that to however you want. Whatever works for you. My main takeaway here is, so really if you want to just center something, the shortest way to do it would be margin 0 auto. But I want a bit of space at the top, so I'm going to go back to 50 pixels auto. So that was a very long explanation. That's not really where we're going. But that's okay. We got that out of the way. You're learning new things. Control save. Let's move on. Dear viewer, I don't know if you've noticed this, but you're like 20 minutes into this video. If you haven't already, please take this opportunity to stretch, maybe do a lap of the room, drink some water, have a snack even, give your eyes and brain a rest, and then when you're ready and feel all refreshed, we can move on to the next step in this tutorial. So now, for the moment you've been waiting for, we're actually going to place everything in position on the page. Isn't that crazy? 20 minutes in and we're doing it. Thank you for your time. Now let's get back to the video. So basically, now that we've kind of got everything centered and we can see everything, the next step is to actually do the layout. I am an hour into recording and we're finally onto the layout. It's okay, let's go people. So to make this work, the method we're going to be using is display grid. And now that's not going to look like it's done anything, and that's okay. So basically, if we look at this layout here, display grid would basically work by, turning it into a grid. So this already looks very grid-like. So with our style, this is where the individual things apply. We're going to be using a styling property styling properties called grid column and grid row. And we assign these to our elements here, which is why we're going to need to separate them. What that is going to do is basically tell them what parts of the grid space to take up. Display grid measures not from the spaces in the grid, but from the edges of the grid. So this grid would consist of 3 edges in its columns. So 2 columns make up 3 edges, and its rows would consist of 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. So 3 rows make 4 row edges. And so grid column and grid row target those edges. So it can be a little bit confusing, but once you kind of see it in action, it should start to make sense. So let's say for this, for our header here, our header's probably going to be the easiest one. Let's start with it, shall we? Like I said, we're going to use grid. No, we're not. Yes, we are. We're going to use grid row. We'll leave that blank for now, and grid column. Okay, so as we can see on the header here, it takes up 1 row, but it meets up with 2 row edges, I guess. And specifically, it meets up with the first and the second one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it starts at the first and ends at the second. So in grid row, we're going to put 1 space slash 2. I don't know if you need the space between the number and the slash, but that's how I've always seen it styled, and I think it looks nice, so we're going to stick with that. And now if we go back to here, you'll see nothing's happened because none of the elements have really had anything drastic change to them, so this is still following the rules that we've just given it. So we're not going to see that, but it will start to change eventually. Next thing is grid column. We'll see it takes up the whole width, which is, we've got 2 columns. So the columns are different sizes, but there are still only 2 of them. You could do this in like 3 columns and then just make this take up 2. It's up to you, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to just go with this is 2 columns. So there's 1, 2, 3 edges to these columns. There's a technical term for these, but I don't know what it's called. So we're just going to keep calling them edges. And our header starts at the first edge. It doesn't stop at the second, it stops at the third. So that's going to leave us with grid column 1/3. And again, oh no, we've got a change now. Look at this. Looking lovely. So these other elements haven't been given grid information, so they're just going to be a bit of a jumbled mess at the moment, but that's okay because we're going to add their information and it's going to make some more sense. So coming back to our layout again, because I think this is easier to describe when there's actually a visual on the screen to point at. That's very handy. We're going to go from the header now onto the nav, and we're going to do the same thing. So grid row. What we're kind of assuming here is that the nav and the main are equals. They take up the same height together. But when one of them grows larger than the other, we don't want the other one to continue growing in size. So the nav does technically in this grid take up this whole space. This is one row. This is one row, this is one row, and this is one row. That's 3 rows total. So though the nav stops early, do not worry. This is not, 2 separate rows. This is one row. So it starts at the second edge and ends at the third. So we're going to go 2/3. See what that's done, and that's done nothing because it was already kind of in that position, so that's okay. And then we're going to do grid column. So columns, we've got 1, 2 columns. It starts at the first edge and then it ends at the second. So that's 1/2. Then we're going to go on to the main grid row. So it starts at the second edge and ends at the third. So that's 2/3. So it's exactly like our nav actually, because they share the same row, so they would have the same grid row content measurement numbers. As for grid column, it is in the second column, so it starts at the second edge, ends at the third, so that is 2/3 also. And then finally, we're on to our footer, grid row. So it is in the last third row. So it starts at the starts at the third edge. So it goes 3 and then it ends at the fourth. So that's 3/4. And then finally, grid column. And if you're seeing a pattern by now, you'll know it takes up the same column as our header, so it will be identical to the header because it starts at the first edge and ends, not that you can see it, oh my goodness, it starts at the first edge, skips the second, ends at the third, so that will be 1/3. Very lovely, and that should be all of that grid information. So when we look back here, you'll see they have aligned themselves. This is starting to look a bit familiar, which is exactly what we want. So we've got our header up the top, our nav and our main kind of sharing that space in the middle, and then the footer at the bottom. Now, let's make this start looking a bit better, because this is currently just a bunch of rectangles. What is next? I should read my notes. Grid gap. Okay, so these rectangles, as I just said, are all kind of squished together. So what I'm going to do is in the box, the dot box, the div, the container, the whatever you call it, I'm going to give it the property grid gap. And this basically just measures out the space between grid items. So obviously this is display grid, so any item within it, which is all these guys, will have this amount of space between them. So I think a good amount of space. Let's try, what's 10 pixels look like? I'd say it looks pretty nice. And that, as you can see, has put some space between them, so they're not like hugging up right against each other. Very lovely. I think, what's next? There's notes in front of me. I gotta read the notes. Okay, so there's grid template columns and grid template rows. we want columns. So there we go. Very long name. So yeah, there's also grid template rows if we want to do that, but we're going to do columns. What this does is going to define the width of the columns. Now this does target the actual columns themselves, not the edges. So we've got 2 columns, so we'll want 2 measurements. So the one, and this, because our header and our footer take up the entire width, they largely won't be affected by this, but our nav and our main, this is where this comes in. This is where we make them not the same size. Each measurement you give is just going to assign to the first, then the second, and the third, and so on columns. So the first one will be the nav. I think that's 50 pixels. Look, that's a bit too small. Okay, let's try 250. 250. There, that looks nice. I like that. That looks like a nice width. Now you can see the main has basically filled out the rest of the space already. I'm, just for the sake of making sure we're covering all bases, I'm going to set that to auto just to be sure. The next, max content. Okay, so basically, like I said before, the nav itself isn't taking up the whole area on this grid, but this is that grid area that we've defined because obviously this is pushing that edge down. So the edge has kind of fallen away from the nav, but the nav is still kind of self-contained because we don't want it to continue growing just because the main has. So what we need to do, because like right now, if I just, so what's happening right now is the main's being dragged down with the nav. And I believe if you add stuff here to the main, it will do the same to the nav. So whatever one's larger, the smaller one will just grow to fit that size, which I personally am not a big fan of. So what we want to do to keep, oh my goodness, what have I just done? So what we want to do to kind of keep control of that is here in our style CSS, on our nav, we're going to go height max dash content. And obviously I've not left that text there, so we're not going to see it, but later on we're going to add it in a bit of text and we should see it will prevent it from growing. And we'll do the same to the main, just in case, you know, you load a page where there's not much text, but you've got a massive nav bar for whatever reason, that's fine. So that should basically keep that under control. That should kind of future-proof all of that. Okay, so if I just put in some cat ipsum here, and you'll see now the main doesn't grow, and if I put that also in the main, the nav doesn't grow, which is exactly what we want. So we want them to kind of keep contained to just what we put in them. The next step, I mean, this is where you basically get to go ahead and do your own thing. So I think the first, because I have in my notes here, to fill semantic HTML with actual stuff. That's literally what it says. But what I might do is I might just decorate this. Let's make this look pretty before we go any further. Now, and nav. Here's a few things I can teach you now that we're at the navigation bar. Okay, so first thing I would like to make sure everyone knows, this is a navigation, H2 navigation. Right, so today, because I don't think I explained in the last video, we've got, what I want to use here is a unordered list tag, list item tags, and A tags. I think that's what those are called anyway. It's UL, LI, and A. So we got our heading for our navigation, and then we want to put, I want to put our links in an unordered list. So that is UL, And then I'm going to add a list item, li, and you'll see it's put a little bullet point here. So we can change the styling of that, but list items under an unordered list. So I think, is it ordered list is the alternative? Yeah, so an ordered list will automatically number your items, but today I don't really need numbers, so we're going to go unordered list. If you don't want this bullet point or you want it replaced, we can do that. We'll get to that in a second. But for now, we'll just leave that there. And in our list item is where we want our link to, I suppose, our other page. Let's say we have another page. Let me quickly whip that up for us, okay? Okay, so what I have done is I've gone ahead and made a second page here. And we can tell it's the second page because it says this is another page, and it's got this massive Pusheen plush image, which I've just put in with an image tag, source equals quotations, and then the file path to the image. So in my case, it's images or imgs slash Pusheen plush.png, but this will be replaced with wherever you're getting your image from. So that's how I've got that. And so let's say you want to link between these two pages. So if I can click the right right page, file, there we go. So first things first, we could link straight to the page, but actually before we deal with other pages, we do want to link back to our current page. Now, obviously we are on the current page, so you don't really need, you could do some fancy thing where, like, because we're on the page, it's like not an active link to let people know that they're on the page. We'll simplify it. We're making this a link, okay? I'll stop over explaining, I'm very sorry. So in our list item, we're going to use an A tag, which is actually quite an important common tag, and I don't know why I'm fairly sure I didn't discuss it last video, which is shocking because it's very important. You need this to move between pages and it's like basically what the internet is made up of. So we use an A tag, and this will mean that we can click on a button on the text, which is a link which will take us to our other page. So in this case, firstly we want to set up our homepage link, so that'll be a href equals, and we want it to redirect back here, so index HTML, close the tag, and we'll call this home. Obviously that's not going to do anything, it's just going to, of course you have a thing in the corner. Why editing me? Put a thing in the corner. Put a thing in the corner, just cover the whole video, I don't care. I'm not dealing with this, okay? So we have that will link back here, but we want to link to our other page. So you can probably see where this is going. We're going to go list item, a href equals quotations. We're going to link to our other page. In my case, I've called it page.html. You can call it whatever you want. Your home page has to be index.html. All your other pages can be whatever you want. So, you know, go for it. We'll just call this Pusheen. And so what's going to happen is if we click on this link, it takes us to our Pusheen page. Crazy. Now the navigation here hasn't updated because we haven't edited the HTML on that page. But that's all right. Just to fix that, all you need to do is copy paste everything from your navigation. So I'm just going to copy paste all that. I'm going to go to our second page. We're going to find our main, or no, we're going to find our navigation, sorry, and then we're going to just paste that in there, and now Control S, we can go home, we can go Pusheen, we can go home, we can go Pusheen. Oh, you can see that's grown there a bit. How do we fix that? That's a good question.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, so min-max bracket 0,1 fraction, FR stands for fraction, end bracket. Okay, so as we can see, our Pusheen image is a little too big, and that was like pushing everything out of the grid, and we didn't really want that. That was not what I wanted. We could obviously just like make Pusheen smaller, but it doesn't like future-proof the layout in case you add something else and you don't notice it, like how I didn't originally notice that Pusheen had made it too big. So this should prevent anything from accidentally pushing out that background in there. Any other elements inside will also adhere to that rule. This is not growing to the length of Pusheen just because Pusheen is there. Everything else is contained within our little main area there. So that's fine. If we do want to fix Pusheen, that's pretty simple. We could go style equals quotations max width max content or not. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Max width 100%. I was thinking on a completely wrong thing. It's still not working. Why are you not working? Why do you, let's go to space. There we go. I got it to work. Okay. So if we do want to fix Pusheen, we can just add style equals quotations max width 100%. That's easy enough. If you want to broaden that more broadly, you could also apply it to all images. Image max width 100%. You know, whatever is up to you. This means if we add in any other images, they will also apply to that. But if you just want to apply it to your individual image, this isn't important. You don't have a Pusheen image. Maybe you do, but I'm assuming you don't. I don't know what you're doing, but point is we fixed this issue here. These should no longer blow out to the size that they were, but it still retains its flexibility, which will be good for when we make this mobile responsive. I've been going for over 2 hours. No wonder I'm tired. Okay, I think I'm just going to finish up. I'm going to fix this footer because that's not really very nice now, is it? All right. Oh, I did say I'd show you how to fix that. Okay, I suppose I should do that. So to get rid of this dot here, so what we're going to do is we're going to go unordered list, and all we want to do is padding, I believe, 0. That's what we wanted. So what that's done is that's kind of moved that little dot points over. If you want them to still kind of be indented, I guess you could leave that like that and then just go. So you can remove the marker using this. So we're looking at unordered lists, and any unordered list with a list item, that's what we're targeting, and then we're targeting the marker of those list items. And we set content to none, and that just removes it. And then if you also want to remove this indentation, then the unordered list would get set to margin, no, not margin, padding 0, there you go. It does also have auto margins there, so you can change those as you see fit. So that's how you remove that. Okay, so I think that's everything. So we have a very nice layout, and that's basically what this is, but like turned into a thing. So you can go home, you go Pusheen, you go home, you go Pusheen, and it all looks very lovely, very good. Very small, not a lot of scrolly things, but that's okay. I think that's enough. I am tired. I hope that was everything, because I'm ready for bed, or a second dinner and then bed. I'm a bit hungry. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I will try my best to answer them, or perhaps someone else who's a bit smarter than me can answer them, or perhaps I will get to it in the next video. We will see. If you found this helpful, also let me know, because I don't feel like this is very helpful. I feel like I've just... my brain is melting. It doesn't feel very good. But if you think I have, let me know so I know not to panic when I make my next one. If I get a little bit tired, it'll be okay. Yeah, I'll leave any resources I can find in the description below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next video. Okay, Goodbye.